Part of what has been bothering me more than anything lately is that the minute you admit to people that you might have depression or that you've been diagnosed or having a difficult time, or definitely like once you get like that sticker of like we're leaning towards this diagnosis, it tends to be like that nobody else around you can be at fault for anything. And that's been a recurrent theme. Like, I really resent the idea that because of my vulnerability and my ability, my interest in sharing and caring enough about you in my life, that I'm telling you this incredibly personal thing that has occurred, or will be occurring in fits, regarding different treatment types. There are so many people, and I don't know if it's intentional or whatever, but it's definitely much more societally acceptable than I wish it was. It's much more common than I wish it was. People will look at you and say, like, well, obviously everything is your fault, or obviously things are like, I'm not a perfect person. I'm not I'm definitely, I consider myself like a person in progress, pretty much always. Like, and at this stage of my life, I'm more than willing to say, yes, I have done X, Y, Z, and here's what I'm willing to do within myself to make sure it's not happening in the future, and here's what I'm prepared to, promise to you as a friend or a family member, or, so we can move forward in a better way. Just dealing with a cord. But I've said it a few times where it's like you're wondering, like I've said in my main video, is this really the degree to which I let it get to should never really have happened. It should have been like, these are, I should have left that first day instead of giving it 2-3 more days to figure it out. And I think a lot of that is my own internalized, like, okay, is this a warranted, response? Is this a series of events that, am I seeing things clearly? But I'm at the point in my life where I'm accepting that I feel like every adult human being has something, like, that they're probably coping with, dealing with from childhood, from their own various traumas. I think that if anybody were to look me in the face and say, like, I've never struggled with anxiety or depression, or, like, I would probably call them a liar. Like, I don't think that there are that many well-adjusted people in the world who have had the luxury of, like, just the stress of, like, from the very beginning of, like, going to public school, and, like, you're automatically on a conveyor belt of, like, these are all these deadlines. I think that there are so few people who have lived without opportunities for extreme stress, opportunities for, loss, grief, and other things to go on. I am at the point where I think everybody has something. Not everybody has everything, but everybody has something. And it sucks that you're frequently punished for being self-aware. Like, the knowledge that you have something going on with you and, like, being brave enough to share that shouldn't then be, like, every single isolated thing that happens is, like, well, that's happened to you because you're mentally ill. Or, like, it did, you know, if I tell you a story or something's really, truly hurt me or really, truly affected me deeply, you should not look at me necessarily differently because of that factor. And in any given Tuesday, any given day where somebody does approach you and say, you know, even just starting a regular conversation, I think that it's like, well, is this me being crazy or me being symptomatic, or is this that person being symptomatic? You know, is it me or this person? And the answer is probably both. Like, both, especially, like I've said, like, because of the greater New Bedford area, living primarily paycheck to paycheck and generation after generation. I'm not saying everybody, but I am saying enough people have been so chronically stressed and might not even understand how to identify that, how to live without that, or what that should be. And like I've said I've said it a few times. I don't know if it's actually on this channel or on TikTok, but like, the opportunity to feel your feelings shouldn't be a luxury, but the realization of, like, I think that I have only gotten to this point where I'm this self-aware because of quarantine, and I think it sucks. It sucks either way. Like, I wish I had known that there were so many things that I was walking around with that I had no idea how badly those things that were adding up and adding up and adding up were affecting me. And then when you're always busy, always entertaining, always, like, doing all these things, I've maybe on purpose, probably on purpose after a certain point, like, put the focus off of myself and onto other people. And I see this happen a lot with moms, grandmothers, whatever. Typically, you know, the selfless people in my life have been, it's, you know, the women are in the background and making everything else go really well, so that hopefully, like, they're moving the next generation much more slowly forward. But that's a different conversation. But in, like, the socioeconomic realm of, like, if you're constantly panicking because you're not sure if you're going to make rent, or if you're constantly panicking, like, about, you know, a physical element of, like, your apartment getting broken into. Like, my house I grew up in got broken into twice, and that really impacted the mental health and safety of me. And, you know, I lived in, like, a really, I don't know how to describe it, but a decent sized property, but, like, with way too open of a yard, like, way too open. Like, we used to come home, either my mom or I would have to, like, call the police because, like, random people were swimming in our swimming pool. Like, even if it was, like, a 3-foot, like, BJ's pool, like, stuff from Walmart, if you don't have BJ's where you're watching from. And that was really scary to think like at any time you're just out in the open, at any time anybody can see like any corner of your existence. So for me, I think that's definitely a huge part of why I value like always lock the door, always do whatever, always have an exit plan, always have, you know, there's only one occasion, maybe two. I think the one that stands out the most is I volunteered to somebody. One time I said, I'm exceptional at packing a bag, and you'll never meet anybody who packs a bag like faster than the way that I do it. And they actually looked at me and they said, I'm sorry about that. And it was like, I was saying it as sort of a joke, sort of off the cuff thing. And then like the minute that they did acknowledge, like, I'm sorry that you've had to have had that happen so many times that you're that good at it. That's something that's going to stay with me for a long time. So the stigma surrounding mental health prevents a lot of people from making videos like this one. I'm going to do my best to continue putting parts and pieces of my journey out as I can. And part of why I started doing this is because I feel afraid that after a certain point, maybe in the not too distant future, like I feel like I'm starting these because my symptoms are getting worse. A lot worse. And I want to be able to share my journey with you guys while I can. While I, in the parts of my life where I am clear-headed and can gather enough energy and enough courage to try again, to turn the camera on and to I've lost a lot of friends. There were girls that I know from another corner of my life where I was working with them all the time, and they were turning to drugs or turning to different things because they just couldn't. They were running from their own mental health through other people. And I know I had a really wonderful friend who was smart and talented and charismatic and went out of his way always to be accommodating and to be present and to have a witticism for other people. And he would message me every time that he saw me putting up, new project advertisements or new modeling stuff, and he was just really supportive and really wonderful, and we got to talking about mental health a lot. And I think that I'm trying not to overshare other people's information, and I'm trying to be respectful just in case. I don't think that there's anything that I would be disrespectful about, but for now I'll just try and speak as generally as I can. It was just a really pleasant person, and we would, we were far enough away, like several states away, so we would text each other just periodically, and he would send me photos from his trip sometimes, or, just being in... It was all to check in on each other. Like, he realized where my mental state was. He opened up with, like, he would text me and be like, hey, I know you haven't posted as frequently, or I saw your last post was just, hey, tell me about your day, and like stuff that just doesn't... I think that I wish that I could have been a better, more in-person, like, more proactive part, because I don't think that I ever took him for granted, but now that he's gone, it's, there's just like an echo chamber. So the hardest part was we realized, I have, within myself, I have two co-occurring types of depression. I have PTSD. I have chronic and persistent depression, which are two different things. And I was finally found somebody that was asking me all the questions and participating, even if it was sort of a pen pal thing, like a you've got mail friendship. And we were friends for 2 years, definitely over a year and a half. And we had basically had this unspoken thing of like, I'm not gonna give up. I'm not gonna give up on myself if you don't give up on yourself. And hopefully you get my drift. And unfortunately, I had, he was in my area over the summer, and I was at the same event as him, but just through the, universe being cruel, like I couldn't stay and like do a bunch of like I couldn't really stop and talk the right way that I wish I had, and then it turned into like, yeah, well, hopefully we can get a beer or something, or hopefully we can get a coffee or whatever. And then that was early July, late June. And then like the worst day of my life, definitely not the worst day of my life, but certainly an awful feeling up there was I got a text that just, I forget if I got a text first or an Instagram first, where somebody said, hey, by the way, like, I don't know how it transpired. I think it was somebody was going through his Instagram friends and being like, hey, hate to tell you, hate to inform you. Like, just a wonderful human being who, again, never stopped moving, had 2 to 3 jobs at any time, and was in a band and was writing creative things all the time, and just had that very, like, the Robin Williams problem of, like, constantly so it's just really bittersweet. Again, I really just don't think we ever took each other for granted, but he was definitely a really incredible friend, and just that level of, like, just another sphere of losing. The loss of the friendship that was, the loss of the friendship that could have been, because he wasn't an older person. Like, he had a lot of years that should have been. So my heart really aches about that. Still, obviously. I think all I can do is try and be obviously try and seek my own help, which I'm doing. I've been on and off the phone with doctor's offices and insurance companies and everybody who knows the struggle knows what that looks like. It's your nearest providers don't accept certain insurances, and your everywhere is full right now. Everybody has a full roster of basically nobody's accepting new patients. And a lot of it is just the mental health crisis pertaining to coping with COVID. It's just there's so many layers and so many different types of upset, and disjointed and triage MacGyver crap of throwing a life together, piecing it together with no template. There's no, all of the assistance programs out there are jokes, unfortunately. They're not capable of doing what they need to do. That's infuriating. I don't even have the energy to be mad. Today, I don't have the energy to be mad. But that's the kind of stuff that, like, what do you mean you're... What do you mean you don't cover certain treatments? Or what do you mean you don't cover, like... how can you say that your emergency room is full and, like, you're turning away people who need help before you get to the emergency room, turning away people who are at an emergency room for any reason other than ventilators because people cannot see straight, can't hire enough staff, and can't have enough capacity. I've been on both sides of the desk when you have to tell somebody that, really sorry, sir, but we don't accept this type of insurance. Like, I've been that person, and I've had somebody, like, try and climb over the divider at me, or, like, over the partition. I understand. No, I don't. I understand what those feelings are, but I don't understand why. I don't think I ever will.